Hello. The Divine Code reading for September 19th, pages 207 and 208. We are in Chapter 7, the obligation to eliminate idol worship and the prohibition of benefiting from it. Continuing in topic number 12. How can this prohibited item be nullified in the majority? So what's being discussed here is the question of idolatrous images or idolatrous items that would be prohibited for benefit. We're not permitted to benefit from the idolatrous object. But if it's in a mixture if it's in a mixture where it's indistinguishable from the rest of the mixture of other items, and it's a majority of the mixture, then the majority is permitted items and non-idolatrous items, and the idolatrous items are minority within the mixture. It's considered permitted to use the mixture, all of the mixture. So how is it that this prohibited item is nullified in the majority? If it is still among the mixture, and someone will thereby derive benefit from it if the entire mixture is used by one or a number of Gentiles. This is because the obligation to eliminate idol worship and anything associated with it does not fall on the gold or silver or other material from which the idolatrous item was made. As we see that if someone cut off an idol's head, the Gentile is permitted to benefit from its material, since the idol has been nullified for Gentiles. So if an idolatrous image is nullified by chopping off the head or by disfiguring it somehow, then it's no longer considered to have a status of an idolatrous object, and therefore it could be used for benefit. The material can be used in some other fashion. Rather, the only obligation is that there should not be any aspect of actual idol worship in the person's dominion or possession. And this prohibition falls on the idol and the reminders of its existence as an idol, and not on the material that composes it. So the prohibition of benefiting from a prohibited item, an idolatrous item, is in the remembrance of the idolatry. It's not on the object itself. It's not on the material of the object itself. It's rather the object. If a person has the object, it brings out the memory of the object and can lead people to start using it again for idolatry. Once it's nullified, it's no longer in that same category as something that will lead a person towards idolatry. If the idol becomes mixed with permitted items, and it is not known which one is the idol, it has already been nullified and the status has been annulled. The person who keeps or benefits from the mixture is not preserving or benefiting from the idol worship per se, but rather from the material that composes the object, and the material was never forbidden. So what's happening here is the person has an idol. There's a bunch of other statues, they got from the garden shop, and it's all mixed together. Now it comes back to the status of a statue rather than the status of an idol. Now, statue also there's certain concerns with. So let's say it's a bunch of figurines that aren't human; they're turtles or something, and there's a turtle statue that's used for idolatrous purposes. And then there's a bunch of statues of turtles that are used for decorating gardens. And they look the same. They get mixed together, and a person can't look in the bag and figure out which one is which. Therefore, the idolatrous turtle statue has been nullified within the mixture. It is unclear if it is permitted to deliberately mix an item used for idolatry with the majority of permitted items in order to nullify it. However, if one does so, it appears that after the fact, it has already become nullified and is permitted for benefit from the entire mixture. It is unclear if one is allowed to make a mixture with an idolatrous item or substance deliberately. Since we find that a Jew cannot deliberately accomplish an outright nullification of a prohibited thing in this way. Some rabbinic authorities hold that this is a prohibition from the Torah and not a rabbinic decree, as explained in Shulchan Aruch Yeridea, chapter 99, and Shach there, and Noda Yehuda on Yeridea, chapter 45. So it appears that there's a Torah prohibition against a Jew deliberately nullifying an item in this fashion of mixing it together with other items. But then after the fact, it would be considered permitted. At least I think it is for a Jew. Definitely for a Gentile. According to this reasoning, it appears that at least one is permitted to benefit from a mixture with a minority of forbidden items after the fact, although it is forbidden to make the mixture. This is because the Shulchan Aruch rules there that the sages decreed a special penalty upon the person who made the mixture with a prohibited substance, that he may not eat of it, but it is permitted for others. There we can derive the significant concept that a mixture of forbidden and permitted items become permitted for Gentiles. So here it's looking at an area in the Torah that refers to mixing food items, and by mixing food items, there's some prohibited and permitted amounts. It might be, a tiny amount of milk got poured into meat, a meat dish, and by adding extra meat to the meat dish, it makes the milk insignificant enough that the Jew can eat of it. But the person that does it, they're not supposed to do it to begin with. They're not supposed to add extra meat to it in order to make it permitted. But once it's done, they're not allowed to do it by rabbinic decree. They're not allowed, the person that does it cannot benefit from it by rabbinic decree, but other people are still allowed to benefit from the nullified mixture of food items. And we're learning from that the rules concerning nullification of idolatrous images by adding a mixture, by adding extra. If you have one turtle and one garden statue turtle and one idolatrous statue turtle, and they're in a bag. You got two turtles in the bag. The person adds a third turtle. Now the third turtle makes the idolatrous turtle nullified, because now you have two garden turtles and one idolatrous turtle in the bag, and the idolatrous turtle is now a minority, and therefore it would be the entire substance, the entire mixture is allowed for benefit, as long as you can't identify one from the other. So is it permitted to add the extra permitted item to make the whole mixture allowed? It is clear from Shulchan Aruch Yeridea 1092 where Rashba and Rosh debate whether a mixture of a minority of forbidden foods and a majority of permitted food become completely permitted and may be cooked altogether for consumption. Even Rashba, who says that it is cooked altogether, that says it is forbidden, says it is only based on the ruling of the sages, as is explained in Shach 109:12 and Shulchan Aruch Harav or Chaim 442:15. But he agrees as well that the ruling based only from the Torah that it is permitted. So from the Torah, it's from the Torah command, the strict written Torah, the strict Torah commandment, which is what in idolatrous concerns, that's also applies to non-Jews for the most part. According to that, it's permitted to use the items, and it might even be permitted to do the mixture for that purpose. It's rabbinic decrees, and the rabbinic decrees don't necessarily apply to non-Jews. Non-Jews can take on some of them if it's logical. They can take it on as a extra measure of being pious, but it's not required to take on that extra measure. Since we have not found a penalty for a Gentile in regard to this type of mixture of an idolatrous entity, such a mixture is completely permitted after the fact. It is possible that it may be permitted for a Gentile to make this mixture deliberately, and it is not comparable to the ruling that one may not nullify a prohibition from the onset, since the penalty in that case is only upon the individual who desired to benefit from the prohibited item itself, and thereby he made the mixture. So there's a prohibition that a person should not make the mixture for the purpose of benefiting from the mixture. The person wants to nullify the items because he wants to benefit from it. In that case, it might be not permitted to make the mixture, to add the extra figurines to the bag. Here, however, where the actual substance is permitted to a Gentile, and the only prohibition is against preserving the name, remembrance of the idol, we can say that there is no penalty, since it is a permitted act and one of the normal ways to nullify an idol. So one of the differences between the Jews and the Gentiles regarding the prohibition of idol worship is that a Jew is not allowed to nullify an idol. He has to destroy the idol. He can't do anything. He can't add extra figurines to the bag and then it nullifies the status of the idol. He's not allowed to do that. A Gentile does not have that prohibition. The Gentile is able to nullify idols through the various different ways of nullifying idols, and one of the ways is to add permitted items to a mixture that makes the idol a indistinguishable minority within the mixture. That might be a legitimate way to nullify idols, and therefore it would be permitted for a Gentile to do that. An equivalent case of mixtures with meat that are severed from a living animal, which is prohibited to eat, see the example in that part of the divine code. So this is something that'll repeat itself elsewhere in halakha and in the Jewish halakha with regards to meat, with regards to meat and milk mixtures and such. And for Gentiles, for non-Jews, the area of a limb of a living animal, this concept comes up again. In regard to the nullification of things that were sacrificed and offered to an idol, when mixed with a majority of indistinguishable permitted items, see chapter 9, topic 17 below. So that's in a couple chapters. Topic number 13. The forbidden forms, images, goblets, etc. If forbidden forms, objects, images, goblets, etc. were accidentally mixed with indistinguishable items that were permitted. So it is not known which of the items of the mixture were forbidden. And the permitted and forbidden items are present in the mixture in equal amounts. The mixture as a whole is forbidden, since there is no majority of permitted items to provide nullification of the forbidden items. Nevertheless, it is allowed for one to destroy an amount of items from the mixture that is equal to the number of forbidden items that were originally there. 1 out of 2, 2 out of 4, etc. And the remaining items will then be permitted for benefit because of the doubt. So this is another way of making the mixture permitted. If there's a majority one way or another, then the decision goes with the majority. If there's a majority of prohibited items, then the mixture is prohibited. If the majority is permitted items, then the mixture is permitted. So if it's equal amounts of items permitted and forbidden within the mixture, then another way, besides adding permitted items, which we're not really supposed to do, but apparently is permitted, but it's not ideal, or splitting it 50-50 with another person, and each person is allowed to use their 50. Another possible way of making the mixture okay is to get rid of half of it. Just destroy half of it. Crush it up and throw it in the sea or something. Destroy half of it, and then the other half would then be permitted. Thank you.